Hey guys, so we have all our friends here today, all medical students, and I asked you guys to give me some questions for us to answer, and you guys delivered, so we're gonna do that today. This is Amari, this is Jessica, and this is Maddie, and we're all medical students. We've been in this for a while, so we have some experience. So we'll answer your questions to the best of our ability. So the first question is, how do you choose a specialty you want to go into, like you only have so little time? Yeah. You kind of do, I guess, in a way. I mean, it's a lot of your life to be deciding in like 3 years? I mean, how did y'all decide?
I think 3 years is a little bit of time, but because it goes by so fast. But if you are able to do a lot of different experiences within that 3 years, you can be certain by the time you're applying that you're going into the right field for you. Some examples of this is like shadowing from early on before you're even on rotations, the different specialties that you think you might be interested in. I personally did a preceptorship the summer between my MS1 year and MS2 year in the field that I thought I was going to go into and the field I ultimately ended up applying in. So getting early exposure, I would say, is key.
Yeah, different ideas.
Early exposure. I also think it's like fairly easy to differentiate if you are interested in like medicine versus surgery in terms of lifestyle, but also what you want to see day to day at work. So that can also help narrow it down a lot.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the biggest first steps, especially if you know you want to do something competitive. It definitely is something that you have to start working towards earlier. As far as other fields that might not be as competitive, you might have a little bit more time. So it kind of varies based off of what you want to do. But I would definitely say like most people are like, oh, you have time, don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, in the middle of third, you're like, oh my God,
yeah.
I have to do things. I've said this in a video before, but I would say like probably towards the end of second year, start to try to narrow it down so that, you know, third year is busy, so it's hard to get a lot of extracurriculars in. So you definitely want to try to start doing those sooner than later. Okay, so the second question is, how did you decipher what experiences are most important to put on your application to medical school? We are quite removed from this, like time-wise, but as someone who's interviewing incoming medical students, I think things, you know, like normal have gotten more competitive every year. And I think like the biggest things are medical experience and volunteering. Other than that, research has started to get a little bit more popular. Like when we applied, I think it was like, oh, you don't have to have it. Like I had one,
Yeah.
I never had a publication or I had like one little presentation, but it is getting a little bit more competitive. So if you can try to at least get like a presentation in your foot or feet, or at least, you know, be a TA or not TA, a lab assistant, that might be helpful.
I think the biggest thing too is like they really want to see that you know what you're getting yourself into and that you spend enough time doing, you know, whatever it is, whether that's shadowing or volunteer work, to like fully understand and like grasp that. So I don't think it has to be necessarily like one specific thing, but just spend enough time committed to a certain activity or volunteer spot, whatever it is.
I think things you enjoyed as well, because, well, I'm not interviewing medical students, you are. Would you say like you can tell when someone really cared or was passionate about an activity that they put on their application?
Yeah, it's definitely, you can tell.
Yeah, so something that you were really passionate about, so that in the interview you can talk about it and it stands out just because they remember that you were passionate and really cared about that activity and weren't just doing something just to do it.
Yeah, I think something that is kind of underrated is like how longitudinal is something like that's on your app that was important to you. So like for me, I didn't have a crazy amount of volunteering, but the things I did do were like things I started in freshman year and I did all the way through until I graduated. So like an example is like every Thursday I would go and like help tutor and read to kids like at a local elementary school. And I was able to carry that from my freshman year all the way through to when I graduated. So I think that kind of stands out versus like if you're doing something where it's like, okay, I did it this one time and you kind of jump around. It's kind of more convincing if you're able to just find something you like and then stick with it.
Yeah, I've said in my video once, like, don't spread yourself too thin. They can definitely tell when you're just trying to do a bunch of different activities. So, find a few things you really enjoy. People are doing a lot of things these days. I was just a little volunteer at a PT. Tiny volunteer at this PT family health clinic. But people are doing phlebotomy now. People are being certified EMTs. So there are definitely things out there. I know with COVID they have like, you know, more restrictions, but they're definitely out there.
What are the best experiences you can have before medical school and how to find them?
Yeah, we can. So as far as the best experiences go, we kind of touched on that. How to find them, it varies a lot, especially like based off of where your campus is and if you have access to like larger hospital system or something like that. You have to do a lot of cold emailing, calling, reaching out a lot as a pre-med student, especially because you know, there's a lot of pre-med students doing that. They're very busy. You just have to really put yourself out there a lot.
Yeah, not be afraid of rejection. I think that in doing this, like, it kind of restructures your mindset to think the worst they can say is no, and then you're in that same spot. So definitely reaching out, especially for research opportunities, you have to send out multiple emails in order for it to work.
And you have to follow up even if they don't respond, because your email is never anyone's priority.
Yeah, as a pre-med student, it gets better as a medical student.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, this is a good one. Is it possible to be dating in medical school? I mean, I am dating. It's been almost 2 years. So I mean, it's definitely possible. Is it easy? No. I mean,
you have to be. I think you just have to be upfront with your partner about the expectations that are on you because of school and the time that it's going to take away. I don't think we really function normally how normal 20-somethings function in relationships just because of our schedules. But as long as your partner can respect that, then I think it's very possible.
Yeah, and you'll have more or less time depending on what stage you're in med school. It might be easier to do at the beginning of med school where it's just more book work, you're not in the hospital, versus your core clerkship year where you're working 7 to 7. It'll be a lot harder during that. So as long as you like you said, have good expectations around it.
Yeah, and I think it goes to all relationships, right? How we stay in touch with our family members, our friends who aren't in medical school, because I think it's hard to comprehend or understand our schedules when you're not in it, but it's very possible to maintain relationships.
Set expectations, boundaries, know when to give, when to take.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot more planning if that's the general gist. Okay, so this one might take some thinking. So what are the best and worst parts of medical school?
So best part, this one's easy, especially because I'm going first, but it's the people that you'll meet. And it's the people really though, that all the friends you'll make and experiences with patients. I think the worst part for me was studying for boards. I think studying for boards is kind of tough because you're on a very strict schedule, waking up, sitting at your computer for 10 hours a day, and then depending on how much self-care you do, whatever, outside of that, that's all you really have for an hour or two, and then you're doing the same thing again, and that's 8 weeks of your life, so.
But hey, we all did it together.
Yeah, we did actually, we all did that together, and now we're better for it. It's called trauma bonding, that's what they say.
We're still healing.
Oh yeah, we are.
I would say, so best would be the people that she already took that, so I would say second best would be how much you learned. It feels so powerful to think back how little you knew at the beginning compared to now being able to confidently go into a patient's room blind and come out with differential diagnosis is something so powerful, and it's, I don't know, so satisfying to know that these years were years of extreme growth and that we were able to do it. Worst part, oh, that's such a tough one. Oh, having to be so adaptable. We switch every four weeks for some rotations. And that third week, fourth week, you're so comfortable, confident, you like the team, the people you're with, and then you get plucked and switched to a whole nother team, whole new content. You have to be used to being uncomfortable in this field.
So I would have said the best part is the people. I mean, everyone's great, but I think it's also being surrounded by like-minded individuals who are just as hardworking as you. But similar to what Jessica said, it's really satisfying to finally be doing what we've set out to do for so long. I feel I really started feeling that towards the beginning of third year, which is when we started our clerkships. But it's this culmination of whenever you decided you wanted to go to medical school. For me, it was middle school. So it's, over 10 years now. I'm just ready to get to this point and finally being there is really satisfying. I think the worst part for me is I think trying to adjust your schedule, like you said, every 4 to 8 weeks. And part of that is adjusting and becoming adaptable to different teams that you're working with every a few weeks in the hospital and like starting at the bottom of a new clerkship and feeling like you don't know a ton. But also in terms of like your personal life, your life outside of the hospital, that scheduling looks so different. So you can go from surgery hours where you're working 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day, 6 days a week for 8 weeks, to being on, I don't know what's the clerkship that had ECR, psych. Yeah, and it's like that nice relief, but also like you get so used to one thing where you're like, oh, here's where I make my lunch and my dinner, and here's where I go work out, and here's where I see my friends, to suddenly having like no time for that. I know like we feel like it's an adjustment. I think our partners feel like it's an adjustment as well, to go from like being able to see you regularly to like not. So
yeah, I would say my true answers were already said, you know, the people and then horrible board time. But just to give, like, I guess, like another perspective.
fun studying.
Yeah, like if you find friends, boards won't be as horrible as studying for, but it really took a lot out of me. But I think one of the bigger, best parts is patient interaction, just getting to, I mean, that, they already kind of said that, but just like feeling confident after you left the room, and actually getting to be a part of patient care and not, you know, just shadowing, because shadowing is great. We do a lot of that in undergrad especially. You will do some of it in medical school too, but just getting to actually participate. Probably the worst part, or not the worst part actually, because the worst part was boards to me, but I think like a bad part that has, you know, double-edged swords. So we said that you get so much information, you know so much, and that can be also, you know, knowing a lot of what is out there as far as like health and diseases, and you're aware, and sometimes being aware is a big burden to have when it comes to yourself, when it comes to family members, when it comes to other people in general. Like, I just was way more oblivious before medical school when it comes to health, so that might be a double-edged sword right there. What's the other one? So yeah, what's your favorite study resource? This one will be quick because we're all currently not really studying that much and a lot of clinical stuff, but in the past, my favorite has been Sketchy, actually. I think, like, I just have remembered way more than I thought I would based off of Sketchy, especially Sketchy Farm. What about y'all?
Probably question banks, and I would say UWorld. It's such a different way of learning. I think you remember things so much more when you get it wrong, and I think with question banks, like, you can't be afraid to get it wrong, and it really sticks with you more. But I would say that's something I never used before medical school, and it's probably been the biggest help.
In addition, we should also share our least favorite study resource.
Ooh. I don't want to like put anyone down.
No, but I think it's never. I think when we have a least favorite, it's never because it's not quality.
Yeah, it's just not
I
for
think
us.
it's because
it just doesn't work
it's just not for you. Yeah.
I think one of those study resources that I found myself not finding incredibly helpful, all this, like, I always had to like do extra work to make things stick or to understand, is Boards and Beyond. And I'm gonna get slandered for this. Like, I think Boards and Beyond, you know? I love Boards and Beyond when it comes to certain topics, but other ones, I just don't learn that way. So
Yeah, I agree. That's why I never used First Aid.
Yeah.
I also think that there's different, like, good study resources for your preclinical years versus when you're in clerkships.
Yes, very true.
Because I loved Boards and Beyond for preclinical years.
For
But then
clerkships,
once
not
we
as
got to
much.
clerkships, I was like the Q-bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, Q-banks are my favorite.
Also, you're gonna get pressured into using Anki. It's not for me, but I know for, like, you love it.
Yeah, shout out to Anki. Anki is also one of those things that, like, topic or subject wise, it depends, because you can't really use it that well for like physiology of the heart. Like, that's
Right.
you just have to work out some things, but for like anatomy and like rote memorization, it's good for sure. And I also loved Anki Sketchy pairing. That was the go for me.
Yeah, that I will say that was very nice.
What fields were you thinking about going into at the start of medical school, and what about now? I'll go first. So going in, it was for me orthopedic surgery, PM&R, psych. I also thought a little bit of gastroenterology, like going the IM route. And now you guys know, if you haven't seen my video, you should go watch it. But I'm going into PM&R now.
What does PM&R stand for, Derrick?
Oh, I always have to do this for people. So it's physical medicine and rehabilitation, which if you want to learn a little bit more about, I'll give a spiel on it in the video that's going to go up there, one of these slides. What about y'all?
So I thought pediatrics or OBGYN at the beginning, very female dominated, girl power. and I'm applying pediatrics.
I jumped around a ton, and then had various like stints with like all different range of specialties, but I'm applying to family medicine now, so kind of makes sense.
I came into medical school wanting to do surgery, was leaning maybe like pediatric surgery, cardiothoracic surgery. Wasn't completely sure though, and I am now applying to plastic surgery.
This is my plastics guru. I go to her anytime I have a question about plastics, which is not often, but she knows. She knows. Okay. Tips for clinical years. This could be honestly a video in itself, which I told you guys I would make a video, but we'll do one tip per person. So you guys can go first and I'll go last.
Mine's more of a soft skills thing, but I think that people enter clerkship year and they think I have to be the best and the brightest, but what I found, especially like as I moved towards later clerkships, is how your team feels about you is so much more about like how you show up and like the attitude you bring versus like what you know. So I think if you can show up, be a great teammate, have a great attitude, that's gonna go so much farther than like kind of knowing everything, being a know-it-all.
Yeah, that's huge. I would say not being afraid to be wrong. I think you learn so much throughout the clinical years, and oftentimes we're wrong. You know, we're students. We're not gonna hit the differential diagnosis on the head every time. So I think it counts for a lot more just attempting. Attempting and being wrong counts for a lot more than not attempting. So I would say going in with like that growth mindset is huge.
I would say find any way to be useful to your team. Generally, like the person on your team that's gonna be the busiest and like need the most help is probably the intern, followed by like PGY2, regardless of what service you're on. And so being helpful to the team, it could include helping writing progress notes for the day, but that could also be making calls to a patient's family to give them an update, or calling like the social worker to make sure that they are able to see the patient, or calling the chaplain, or taking something up to the patient's room, like whatever it is, like just do it as helpful, but also like don't always wait for someone to ask those things of you. Like if you know that that's something that has to get done that day before everyone can go home and you're not doing anything, offer to do it.
Yeah, that's definitely a big one. I know it's harder in the beginning where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Because you don't know what needs to be done.
So you don't even know your way around the hospital.
But the more you learn and the more you quickly jump in, they'll notice it. I think one for me would be don't be afraid to just straight up ask residents or attendings, like at the beginning of a rotation, what are my expectations or what are your expectations? Because you can't really assume that they're going to be the same across different services. Even within the same service, like working with different attendings, their expectations might be different. How would you want presentations to look like?
They will all have different like preferences for presentation, like it's a guarantee. Same with notes.
Yep, notes.
So
Ask how many patients do you want me or expect me to pick up? Because, rotation will like tell you this is rotation-wide objectives, expectations, but really a lot of attendings have their own preferences, so just ask. Or ask a resident.
And especially if evals are going to be a large part of your clerkship grades, which for us I think it's
most of them are like 30-40%.
Yeah, it's just important to clarify even if it's in the syllabus.
Well, yeah, like I said, I will have to make a whole video because this is like a gamut of things, but
also be nice to the nurses.
Yes, definitely, respect people. But good luck to you on the clinical rotations. Whoever asked this, it's the hardest but most rewarding, I think, years of medical school. So if you could go back and change anything about your med school journey, what would it be? You guys are asking deep questions.
I wouldn't change anything.
You wouldn't change anything?
Maybe just my mindset and knowing, like, in the stressful times, knowing that it would be okay eventually, because every time it is, right? It's just like the journey of medical school, so maybe just like not being as stressed at some moments in time that like took away from some joy. But I think the way that I actually did things and where I'm at now, I wouldn't change anything.
I mean, we can't change this. We started med school in the middle of the pandemic. And I think it made it like, I see like all the other classes who like got to know each other through their retreats at the beginning of their first year super well, and like I think it was harder for us to all make friends just because of like COVID restrictions. But in terms of like how I manage stress, how I tried to find somewhat of a work-life balance, I'm happy with where I am right now. So.
What about you? You change anything?
I don't think I'd change anything, but yeah, I wish I had a better, mindset at certain points. But I think everything kind of happened the way it was supposed to happen. I met all the right people. I learned the lessons I was supposed to learn. So
yeah, I'm a believer in everything happens for a reason. So I wouldn't go back and change anything. But I guess I wish I was a little bit more intentional about like writing down like new experiences or things that were important to me, or just like documenting. I don't know, just because I feel like med school kind of went by fast, and just as far as like reflecting and being able to also use it for like residency interviews. Like when they ask like what's a patient patient experience, or just for your own gratification. Cool. Okay, and then we have one last question, which is how do you maintain a work-life balance, which is also a very loaded question.
In the next video.
But we'll give like a little spill. So for me, work-life balance is just all around planning, honestly. Like when people ask this question, it obviously looks different for a lot of people, but I think the thing that will be universal across maintaining one is planning. Unless you're just crazy good at just managing your time without knowing what you're going to do next. But for me, planning is a big one.
Such a plan. Like, everything has to be written down for you, down to the minute. Like from 6:36 to 7:35, I will be cooking.
What about y'all? How do y'all kind of make sure y'all maintain that?
I think you have to like pinpoint. I think like for me, it's like the two most important things to do outside of school. So like for me, that's working out. I realize like I'm not the same person mentally if I am not physically moving my body. So prioritizing that, and then prioritizing my relationships, whether that's like with you guys, my friends, or with my partner. That is, I guess, like making time for those.
What about y'all?
I would say like finding like 2-in-1 activities. So like walking and talking, like hot girl walks. Hot girl walks is huge. I love hot girl walks. You're social and exercise. Or even like dinner, right? You have to eat at some point, so you're eating and then getting in that social time as well. I think time is just like the most essential thing as a medical student. So I think if you can like combine activities, it really helps.
I see people like at the rec, they're on the treadmill and then they'll have the Anki like in front of them. That's like,
I would trip and fall.
I would get dizzy. I get motion sickness trying to read.
I'm honestly not the best person to ask this question to. I'm very driven by like, okay, what needs to get done, and then with the free time I have, like if I'm just like sitting at home for 15 minutes after I get home from work, I just get like an urge to like go to the gym or to go, talk to a friend.
You go with the flow.
I go off like, okay, I have my feeling right now. If I don't have the capacity to study for the next 2 hours, then like I'm gonna do something else with that time. I'm gonna go to the grocery store, do my laundry, and then just things will get in where they fit.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. There's some times where I feel like I'm tired of like structure and I just need to do what feels like good to me. And so I do that a lot as well. Like I'll like get the hardest things that I need to get done out of the way, and then the things that I can do another day, I'll put away and do what I need to do for myself.
Don't sacrifice your physical wellness, whether that's cooking or working out or sleep, whatever physical wellness is to you.
You kind of saying that reminded me of really good advice that I received like first year of med school, and this person told me like, you are not supposed to have every day be like a hard day. Like you're supposed to have days where it's like, okay, like you did 800 Anki reviews today, and then you like went to the gym, did all this stuff, and then you're all supposed to have days where like maybe you didn't do as many reviews, and like that was more of a chiller rest day where like you got to take care of like your life maintenance things, where you did laundry, like did those kind of things. Like not every day has to be like a maximal study day for you to like have success over the long term.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Well, that is the last question. You guys asked very sensible, great questions, and so we hope this was actually helpful. It is Friday for us, so we're gonna get started with the weekend because
we deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, I might not deserve it because I've been enjoying 4th year. Yeah, and she's going to no way rotation, so. But we will all hopefully be in one space to do another video for y'all, maybe at some point. But until then, I will see you guys later on the next MedHead. See you later. Bye.
Bye.